There was a chance that we could have also Enrico Acerbi, the game designer, for Inferno with us tonight. He was not sure about that. We should have somewhere, we should be here also Volko, that kindly said that he will be with us for this event. Okay. Oh, here he is. Okay. Hi, Volko.
Hi, am I late?
No. You're never late. No, you just arrive when you're needed. Just like Gandalf.
Be abused.
Welcome here. Welcome. Okay. Okay, guys. I think we can start. We can start with this event, with this panel about Inferno. And first of all, I introduce myself. My name is Riccardo Masini, and I'm an Italian content creator for wargames. I'm a wargame enthusiast. But most of all, I am a history enthusiast. I am the author of several essays about medieval and modern history, military history in particular, but not just that. And I've had the opportunity of being an historical consultant also for Inferno. Inferno, that is a game by Enrico Acerbi and Folco Ranke. Now, the object of the game is the conflict between the Guelphs and Ghibellines in medieval Tuscany in the 1200s, and at least one part of that conflict is the Montaperti campaign, the campaign for the Battle of Montaperti. It was just one of the many conflicts between the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. In this panel, we will deal with those conflicts, but not starting from a gaming point of view. That is, explaining the rules, the various mechanics. No, but from an historical point of view. This is because I am an history enthusiast before being a wargamer, and so I prefer to analyze these games starting with the historical perspective in mind. And since I was amazed by how the Levin Campaign series dealt with medieval warfare, politics, economy, that is medieval history, I really wanted to do a panel like that showing how those games, those series, and in particular Inferno, essentially as a case study, deals with those aspects. Now, to begin, I am about to share my screen, my presentation. I hope that everyone gets to see it. So you will see just a small square up on the left corner, in the upper left corner of your screen. You should click on that so that you will be able to see the presentation. Oh, very important. This session is going to be recorded. It will be later rebroadcast in my YouTube channel vlog. So I just wanted to say that if anyone has any difficulty with that, so it will be later rebroadcast on my YouTube channel. And I really want to thank the San Diego Historicon, SDHiscon staff, and Errol Buchanan in particular for giving me the opportunity of rebroadcasting this event also on my channel. Now I'm going. Okay. I'm recording this with OBS. I hope everything is right. It should be. We'll see later in a week also. So, from the depths of Inferno, okay, medieval warfare and politics in the Levy and Campaign series. Please tell me if anything is wrong with the slides and so on. They should change now. This is me. This is my introduction. As I said, I'm a wargamer. I'm a content creator. I am a regular contributor for several magazines, Io Gioco, the Italian game magazine, but also for C3I, Parabellum, and others. Also, I'm one of the admin for the Facebook group Ludo Storia, which is a group dedicated to historical gaming in all its forms. An Italian Facebook group, but it is dedicated to miniature war games, Euro war games, board war games, also role-playing games. That is everything that is a game and has a deep historical setting. Also, I am one of the contributors for the BG Storico area in the Modena Play Italian convention, which is the greatest live Italian convention. Also, I am an author of several essays, and some of them are about military history. Many of them are written with my father, Sergio, who is with us, and he is one of the very first writers about war games in Italy in the late 70s and early 80s, and then also an author of military essays. We are both of us are members of the Società Italiana di Storia Militare, the Italian Society for Military History. So we have a joint interest in both war games and military history in particular. But also here you see I am a war gamer. This is okay. Let's begin. Let's begin with our dear Inferno. Let's begin with the big picture. You will see, as a premise, I won't go into detail into every single aspect of the rules. No, it won't be that kind of presentation. It won't be that kind of event. I will go explaining the history before the game and how the game captures history. So let's begin with the big picture. And yes, it is complicated. Why? Okay, I've seen many on the wargaming community starting from their own perspective, considering Guelphs and Ghibellines as two very distinct factions. That is, the Guelphs were with the Pope and the Ghibellines were with the Emperor. So the Guelphs were with the Church and the Ghibellines were with the Emperor, so they were against the Church. This is absolutely not true for this period. Why? Because it was... I always think that this situation is more like what we see in Pax Pamir. I don't know if any of you has played Pax Pamir. That is in 19th century Afghanistan. That is small localized powers. In Pax Pamir, it was Afghanistan, so they were clans, they were very localized powers. And it was city. In medieval Tuscany, it was city. It was not the Pope that used Firenze against Siena that was controlled by the Emperor. It was not that way. It was Firenze that hated Siena, and Firenze asked the Pope for help to fight against Siena that asked the Emperor for help. And each of these cities and all the smaller cities around them, they essentially maneuvered the Pope and the Emperor to get their support. You have also to understand that we are in a phase of European history where the balance of power is still the Mediterranean area. It's about to shift north, to shift on the northern Europe. These are still the richest and more fertile and most important regions of Europe at the time, but both the Pope and the Emperor are very weak powers. The Pope is not in Rome. The Pope is in Viterbo. Why? Because in Rome there has been a revolt and Rome is controlled by the Emperor. The Emperor, well, we have had the last great Emperor of the Hohenstaufen family, that is Frederick II, the Stupor Mundi, the greatest Emperor, but he has died. And his descendancy is not clear. Now we have Manfredi, that is he the Emperor really? there are troubles, there are legal troubles because he's an illegitimate child. The descendant is Corradino, is the young Conrad, but he is very young. So Manfredi is an acting regent, he is a king, but then he is the situation is totally complicated. And also in the Ghibelline field, you have Siena that stands with Manfredi, but you have Pisa. That's, yes, Pisa is Ghibelline, so Pisa and Siena should be allied, but Pisa stands with Corradino, and Pisa will not send its troops to Monteperti for this reason, because they are essentially backing the, so we can say, the wrong emperor. Spoiler, both Manfredi and Corradino will die in a very bad way, to great defeat, Benevento and Tagliacozzo. And after the situation will get even more complicated, but also for the Pope, the situation is not complicated. So it is a lot of small powers. Dante had a theory, and we see Dante writes a generation after those events. Dante's theory, it was that between the Pope and the Emperor, he had I due soli, the two sons, they should be essentially equal. That theory was not followed. Everyone was maneuvering for power, and with a lot of outside interferences, Genova, Pistoia, Romagna, other regions of Italy, Tuscany was the battlefield. But how was Tuscany? La bella terra di Toscana, the nice land of Tuscany. We are speaking about a game set in one of the richest and most fertile regions of Europe. And this is very well represented in the game. Why? By two means. You will see, if you compare the map of Inferno with the map of Nevsky, you will see the map of Nevsky is much, it is not larger, but so less city, the city less numerous. In Inferno, you will see a chaotic tapestry, a network of cities. I didn't count them, but I think they are almost double, or at least, at the very least, 1.5 cities than in Nevsky, and also many more than what we see in the Almoravid map. Why? Because the land was rich, it was fertile, so every single crossroad had its own castle or small town or small outpost, and some of them were very big. There was Arezzo, there was Pisa, there was Grosseto and Orvieto. It was not just Firenze and Florence and Siena. I will be using Italian names even for places that are that have an English name, and I really like that in the map they are still represented with the original name. But also, why this land was fertile? Because the climate was exceptionally good, and it still is. It is Tuscany. It's one of the nicest places in Italy. And one aspect of the game is that when you ravage lands in Inferno, you just have to wait one turn, and those lands, most of those lands, will repair themselves. Why? Because they are fertile. Today in the coffee lounge, I said, for example, not many people know that the last plants of Kentucky tobacco are here in Tuscany, because the original plantation of Kentucky tobacco were destroyed during the American Civil War, but before it was transplanted here in Tuscany, and it flourished. We have an entire brand of cigars, the Toscano, that are made with the original American Kentucky tobacco. So some botanists from the United States came to Tuscany to get back those plants and replant them, because they are the only offspring of that peculiar plant of tobacco. That is just to show you how fertile these lands are. But these lands were ravaged, these lands were destroyed. We had droughts also. We had rivers that were not curated in a modern way. So we had those rivers that overflowed and destroyed cities, and this is also in the game. In a land such as this, as is the Middle Ages, you could not plan too long campaigns and two ravishing wars. Guerra sì, ma non troppo. Yes, it was war, but not too much. The campaigns were short. This is a constant of every single Levian campaign game that I've seen. That is a couple of years free at the very maximum. But here you see that the scenarios are very small because the maneuvers are so dense, the terrain is so dense, and also the power struggle is so intense because, as I said on the first point, those two powers are maneuvering each against the other, gathering outside support, and all of this translates into very, very, very short campaigns. The entire campaign game lasts 2 years. Before Montaperti, the Great Battle of Montaperti, and just the immediate aftermath. We have a situation after Montaperti. There will be a great Ghibelline victory, spoiler, but another spoiler, it will be just a few years, and the situation will be reversed once again. So the situation, you have to understand that the situation is very fragile, and the balance can be reversed in every moment. That's why the big picture, it's really complicated because it is a really chaotic situation, and that can change at every single moment. You just have a small variation there. You just conquer one castle. This means that a certain noble switches to your side so that you can convince maybe the emperor or the pope to give you the asset that you need to win the conflict. But that asset is 300 German knights or 500 Saracen archers. It's very small, or another single city outside in the Apennines, and that it changes the balance of power. Okay, so let's talk about the two elements of the Levian campaign series. Everybody knows Levian campaign series is based on two elements, identifies the two many elements of medieval warfare. That is the levy, that is getting people and stuff together, and the campaign, getting these people and stuff do something. Let's begin with the levy. How you gather your assets, that is your material assets and your human assets, your troops. One of the main features of the political, and that is the military landscape of Tuscany at the time, I'm using politics and military as interchangeable terms because it is always true, we all know from Clausewitz, but in medieval Tuscany it isn't absolutely true. It just works that way. Politics and military affairs are not interconnected. They're just the same thing. And this game captures that very well. And one of the ways that this game captures it very well is how it manages to introduce another category of vassals. We all know Levian campaign, we have vassals that are bound to their lords, that you can summon them with a lord, and they are bound to those laws by personal loyalties and fealty, and so on and so on and so on. Nothing of the kind exists in Inferno. Yeah, there are some single vassals that work that way, but most of them, and you will see in rules, are there just for their own interest. Some of them are not that easy to summon. They have their own fealty roles, just like some small mini-lords. Also, many of them can be bribed. You can have half of your army that goes on the other side. Why are they traitors? No, because the other side treats them better, and they see the other side as more aligned with their personal interest. Every single piece of this game has a life of its own, has its own interest. There are great characters. You see in this picture Farinata degli Uberti. We will meet him in Dante's Inferno. Farinata degli Uberti was a generation before, but was a great political adversary of Dante on the other party, on the other faction, and it is Provenzano Salvani, degli Uberti. It's full of incredible characters. Why? We have already seen that on the map, because many cities, many towns, that is, many trades. These are not countryside vessels. These are urban vessels. We are in a more modern landscape than the other Levin campaign titles. Not just chronological, but functional of what is happening on the ground. We have vassals that are neighborhoods of the city. We have really parts of the city. This explains why Montaperti was such a disaster, a devastating defeat for Florence. Why? Because in that battle, many thousands of citizens were captured or killed. This means half of the workforce, because those were artisans, they were traders, they were farmers of the immediate countryside of Florence. Half of the city was put in chains or killed after Montaperti. Half of the male population. It was a demographic devastating defeat. Also, these loyalties are very localized, because every single of these counters belongs to a certain town, so to a certain spot, to a certain lord on the map, even more than what we see on the other Levin campaign titles. And every single of those countries has its own personality. Some of them will stay with you, will prolong their Levy period just out of hatred for what other pieces of your adversary have done to their own town. They will say, oh, they destroyed my town, they killed my cousin, I will stay one season longer just because I want to kill him. This is present in the game, and it is a very important aspect of this game. As you see, okay, Terzi e Sestieri. Terzi is 1/3 of the city. It is the neighborhood of Siena. Sestieri is 1/6 of the city, and it is the neighborhoods of Florence, of Firenze. Those are the neighborhoods that I spoke with you before about Montaperti, and those happens when the comuni, that the communes, that is the cities, go to war. Inferno has two levels of war: a low intensity warfare, that is when you move just your lord, the Lord of Arezzo or Santa Fiora, or even, yes, the Podestà of Siena, but with a reduced army, and a high intensity warfare mode when the call to arms is used. When the call to arms is used, the call to arms mechanics comes into play. You have to imagine the entire city, the church bells ringing, everyone getting out of his house with his armor, with his lance, or who can afford it, with his horse, going to war. And you have the carroccio. The carroccio, what it is a great cart pulled by oxes. It is so big, so heavy that it is not pulled by horses, but by oxes, that has a big altar. It has a holy relic, the holy cross of the city. Oh, and just to reinforce what I said before, Siena was much more tied to the Christian tradition than even Florence. So it was said that it was the city of the Holy Mary. So religion really had nothing to do with that. And the roles were absolutely and totally reversed. I have a message by Enrico Cerbi. I hope that he finds it. He finds it. I think he is in the room. Let's check it. Okay, here he is. Enrico is with us. Okay, I hope to say. Okay, Enrico, please correct me when I'm saying something wrong about this. Okay. But what happens when a city goes to war? Call to arms. Okay, every single neighborhood, hopefully, will gather around you. You will have your podesta, you will have your carroccio, your big cart that serves as a reference point. Everyone will go to war, but you will have a big army. And a big army, what does it mean, a big army in the Living Campaign series? A lot of food, logistics. You need to have central logistic in a system that was not suited to provide for central logistics for a long time. This is centuries before national armies. So a big army of thousands and thousands of people, it was an enormous effort for those cities, for that road network, for that transportation network. So once again, very short campaigns. And what happens when the two big armies of the two great cities come to war? They find by appointment a fixed location. It will happen at Monteperti. Don't think about a Napoleonic maneuver. No, I go here, no, I go around, we have march and countermarch. No. Okay, we can stay on the field just a few months. So, okay, we will meet at Monteperti. Okay, right, bam. And here you have a call to arms is the big crescendo, the last chapter of a tragedy. Also, why? Because the entire political network was not structured about, I won't say nations because it's the Middle Ages, but not even dynastic or ties or feudal ties. It was based around the podesta. What the podesta? Podesta means literally the power in the town, the one who is in power, who is in charge. And it is, imagine the major of your town, but your major controls not just the urban police, but he controls also a small personal army, a small army of your own town. And mortum podesta, this is from a saying in Italian that mortum papa se ne fa un altro. When a podesta dies, another one, a new one comes, exactly as happens with the Pope. A podesta is a single character, is a single person, and he is not named because the chronicles, many of them are not named in the chronicles. And in the game, this happens when Podesta is defeated in battle. Okay, you would think, okay, he's eliminated. No, in these games, he will come back just 6 months later, just the time needed to arrange for an electoral campaign, a political campaign. It is, I know, it looks weird, but it is exactly how things work. But the Podesta system meant that they were very flexible. They were very versatile. They had much more flexibility in the field, and this is represented in the game. A Podesta has less limitation when he is besieged in his hometown, and if there is no one in the hometown when he is besieged, okay, he can summon an emergency army. Everybody, okay, and even in the small towns, is the Podesta of Colle e San Gimignano. They are very small towns, so just a few thousands of people, but they are enough. So this levy the levy in Inferno is very localized, is very fragmented. We're speaking about very small numbers of troops, but in this scenario, in this situation, very small numbers of troops make a world of a difference. And you see when the two cities gather the great armies, the great horses, they can support them on the field just for a few months. This means in game terms, just for a few turns. After that, campaign, the other aspect, moving people and the stuff around. La danza dell'armata, a dance of armies. Yes, I'm using a lot of a Game of Thrones quotations. we all know, okay, those armies had no radio, they had no communication, so it was difficult to coordinate them. All right, this is usual for the Living Campaign series, and we have these great mechanics of the command cards, and you arrange them before, so that is you send out your orders, and you hope to have founded a perfect order of towns, a perfect of commands, a perfect order of priorities. You hope to have get it right, and it is not always the case. Here it is even more complicated. Why? Because of the interaction, we will see that with the treachery mechanics. That is, okay, you have your big army, and then you have your lord with lots of knights and men-at-arms, and you are marching towards the enemy city, and then a revolt breaks out just at your back, just on that road that is crucial for your logistics network, and the entire command order, priority planning, and so on goes out of the window. You have to improvise, because you have to, oh my god, Casole is in revolt, and Casole is on just that crossroad, and that crossroad will break out all the logistic for my two armies, so I have to come back and besiege the damn castle. Now I want to destroy them because they ruined my spectacular campaign I was going to win. This is a very common instance in Inferno. I like to call these mechanics the whack revolt. You know, about just like whack-a-mole. You have revolts popping up everywhere. The only thing that you can do is to keep your plan simple and try to maintain a central position with someone going fire brigade around every single corner of Tuscany. After a few games of Inferno, you will have a very close relationship, very close knowledge of the geography of Tuscany. Believe me, I found out the exact positions of some of those towns that I know, that I visited them, but I didn't know their relative position with us. By studying this map, by playing this game, I found out their position very well. Another aspect of the campaign side of things is con spada e scudo, with sword and shield, battles and sieges. How are they dealt with? Well, as they should be, and as they were very random affairs, by hosts of troops that you know or you don't know. That is why I love the use of wooden blocks. Some of traditional wargames say, oh no, the Living Campaign is not a wargame because there are no units. And I say, no, it is more of a wargame because this game puts me really in the shoes of a medieval commander who does not know those people. He's just moving finger. Okay, you 1,000 people, go on the left. You, okay, charge, etc. It probably knows them, but they are not strictly identified as military units. They do not work that way. They have a personal allegiance with a single lord, or a single podestà, or a single town, or a single power, but they're not the 3rd regiment of light cavalry and so on. They are the Feditori di Firenze. They are the Florence, the Feditori of Florence. This means the light cavalry of Florence. So, okay, everyone could say, oh, there is a guy named Dante in those Feditori. Ah, I know, he is my half cousin by my father. That's all the knowledge you get to these people. This is true for Montaperti, that is one generation before Dante. It will be also still true for Campaldino, that will be the great battle fought by Dante. Oh, and by the way, I love the fact that they are wooden blocks. They are blocks made out of wood. Sounds really medieval. There is nothing more medieval than wood. What you see in the picture, I love so much wooden blocks that I used my own wooden blocks because I liked the colors better. But also what you find in the box is good. But to see how much I was taken away by these game. I wanted to have some more raw material components, but you will see in those armies a lot of specialized troops. First of all, you have crossbows and other crossbows. Why? Because crossbow was the national weapon of Italy in the Middle Ages. It was sanctioned by the church. It was excommunicated. That nobody cared about that. A crossbow was a crossbow. There are still places in Tuscany where they have competitions of crossbows that are centuries old. That is how we are tied to this weapon. And it is a very Italian weapon. Why? Because it is a very accurate weapon. It depends on your personal skill. It needs resilience, but a good crossbow can land a knight, can penetrate the armor of a knight. So even a humble footman can get down a powerful knight. Nothing like that will be present on the battlefield until, yes, the firearms. It is not by chance that the firearms are essentially, if you see the shape, are essentially crossbows powered by gunpowder. But the reasoning is similar. One thing is that firearms require much less training than what crossbow require, because it is very hard to use a crossbow. You have to be very skilled at that. And you also have to depend on other people with the pavesi, with the tower shield to cover you up. And this is present on the game. This is present on the special cards and special abilities. But also, you have other very specialized troops. You have German knights coming from the Emperor. You have Saracen archers. Nobody knows, but it was an Islamic republic in southern Italy thanks to the great Frederick II. A small contingent of fiercely loyal Saracen archers, fiercely loyal to the emperor. You had Greek soldiers, possibly Byzantines. You had knights coming from other places of Italy. Tuscany was such a magnet for a lot of different troops, and yes, they are all here. They are all here, each of them with their own special ability. A last word about sieges, because they are not battles, but they are the most frequent form of clashes of conflict in this game, and it is absolutely true. It is absolutely it is absolutely good. So because this was the most frequent way to conquer a city, and you have lots of decision when to sally out of the city, when to storm. Do I have to send an army on relief or just leave the city to its own fate? It is not so important. It is a big part of the decision properties. And one last word for the greatest unit I've ever seen in a living campaign series, that is the Tau Company, the Company of Town. They are essentially a bunch of, I like to consider them a bunch of knights, Knight Templars, just on a very small, operating just on a, they have nothing to do with Templars, but the working is the same. They protect the pilgrims going on a very small fraction of the road network of their own territory, and it is fantastic. The Company of Alto Pascio, just read the history. It is incredible. It is possible the oldest knightly orders of all the Western world. So, and it is yeah. We have spoken about the Via Francigena, that is the road of the Franks. That is one of the main pilgrim trails, and there is one of the other essential aspects of the game: roads, boats, and ships, because there are also ships controlled by Pisa. That is logistics, aka logistics. Okay, living campaign, we all know. Logistics is a fundamental asset. Here it is easier, because you just need carts, and it is a bit, we have said the land is more fertile, so it is easier, but it can be punishing. How? As I said, when a city revolts just on your road network, and all of a sudden you're cut off from that, from your supply sources. So military campaigns. It can be, okay, there is a big army of my enemy. Why should I confront it in open battle? I just need to go to Cortona and to bribe the mayor of Cortona, and so that Cortona becomes Ghibellines, and no more logistics for that great army of Arezzo. And this will happen every single time. The roads also, there is the road bonus that is very important. This is a land with all the Roman roads, but most of all new medieval roads that were a bit more protected than the old Roman roads. That is with a very good road network, and this is important. And this reminds you that Tuscany is not Russia, so it is a bit different than Nevsky. And as we said, Pisa had its own peculiar transport assets, that is ships. Why? Because Pisa was a seafaring autonomous republic, autonomous city, and had ships. And had ships that traveled on the Arno, and Pisa was against Firenze, against Florence, and could theoretically send her ships to Florence through the Arno. And they tried. Sometimes it did not work, but they tried. The Florentines in later years just deviated the course of the Arno exactly for this reason. And a guy named Leonardo da Vinci was involved in the project. But we are speaking 2 centuries after. This is just to let you know how long those conflicts were. Some of the consequences of those conflicts are still active today. They are still operating today. Pisans and Florentines and Sienese do not really go very well together. They still have some old-time grudges against them, even today. Okay, but Levin campaign? No, not just Levin campaign. The system is very dynamic, so there's a lot of stuff more. Another thing, the art of war cards, l'arte della guerra. The war is an art. Art of war, arts of war is a term that you find in other Levin campaign series, but in Inferno it is really an art. Those cards represent the non-kinetic and non-linear aspects of warfare. You see doctors and astrologers, or hidden frauds, betrayals, ambushes, brigands, and single aspects, small towns like Montepulciano that determines the possibility to go and call to arms with the entire cities. There are so many different assets, so many different ways to win or also to lose. Because if you use an asset, a card, in a way and not in the other, this may open up some opportunities for your wily opponents. Okay, he has used this card for astrologers, but he will not be able to use that for doctors. Oh, use that for a single piece of special troops. He will not be able to use it for Volterra. And since the situation is so interconnected, as it should be, as it was in medieval Tuscany, every single card is an opportunity. And you have to think very well about this, not just for you, but also for your opponent. That is what you are not activating, what you will not be able to activate. In such an interconnected landscape and scenario as is Inferno, this is very present, and even more than the other titles. And this is good because this was the historical situation. Also, you will see the great importance of economics and the financial aspects. You will see war loans, economic sanctions, assaults on the trade routes. These were cities that lived, that thrived, not by agriculture, okay, but most of all by trade. And disrupting trade networks provoked revolts and riots and disorders and rebellions and shifted the such a delicate balance of power that was in Tuscany at that time. So you have to rule out your fortune, and it is a very very Italian thing to do, and it is very really connected to the Italian cultural environment, cultural heritage, even today. Another non-linear diverse aspect is how you use ravage and forage. We say dare il guasto, lay waste. It is literal. I give to your land the waste. I destroy your land. Those were times when there were, and they are in the game, specialized troops like the Barovieri that were specialized in pillage, but you had also guilds of professionals specialized in rebuilding, the costruttori. So there was people that was after the armies and was waiting. Okay, they will go to Monteriggioni and they're going to destroy it, or to Colle. Oh yeah, they destroyed Colle. Okay, it's our turn. Okay, we are here. We're just waiting for a public contract with the great Comune of Siena so that we will rebuild Colle. Yes, there were professionals that were waiting just that. We see on the top portion of this map of Poggio Venezio. You will not see that on our maps of today's Italy. Why? Because you will see Poggi Bonsi, that is the later towns that was built after Poggio Bonizio was destroyed. In later years, not so much, in 10 years from now, from the situation of the game, but it was destroyed by the by French troops or the Shahs of Anjou. It's another story. And by Florentine troops. Why? Because Poggio Bonizio had betrayed the Guelph's cause, and the Florentines paid the French 4,000 florins for the privilege of destroying Poggio Bonizio, because they want to destroy the damn city full of traitors and spill salt on the ruins, as the Romans had done with the old Carthage. This is the scenario in which we are fighting in Inferno. And also you have to be very careful. Why? Because if a Florentine army gets ravages or gets ruins to Monteriggioni, the Florence will get 1/2 VP, but Monteriggioni is and stays a Ghibelline city, so the Sienese cannot ravage Monteriggioni. Why? Because they will just give 1/2 victory points still to the Florentines. The cities are very deeply interconnected with their own faction. And also we have other cards, that is the Masnadieri, the semi-professional ravages going all around in the country. There is not just a front line, there is the front line, but remember, there are revolts, there are riots, so everything is happening even beside that. Okay, we need to go a bit fast because we are approaching the end of our time, but I wanted to reserve a point a last moment for this, that is treachery. And treachery is the main mechanic of Inferno. Treachery means that whenever you lose a battle, whenever you have not the money to ransom your knights that have been captured during a battle, and you are not ransoming my cousin Piero, you are incapable, you are unable of being a podesta, so that and so you have revolts. A lots of stuff in the game will give you access to the treachery cards. The treachery cards operate with a random table, but they can also be used to bribe single elements of the enemy. This is the main factor, the main mechanic of the game, and the main factor of the historical events. Why? Because the loyalties were fragmented, they were not very solid, they were not very stable, so everyone was up for their personal interest, even inside the same faction. A great portion of the army of Siena in Montaperti was made of Florentine exiles. The exiles are another very important factor in the games. Some of them were traitors to Florence. We had characters like Bocca degli Abati, and Dante speaks a lot about them. Speaking of Dante, we come to the end of our journey, a game of sources. I told you, a lot of Game of Thrones quotations. How this game manages with sources. From Dante to Folco, I like to call this section. The use of those historical sources by Enrico. Enrico is a great historian, also, and also being a very good wargame designer. And it shows there is a very good bibliography. There is a background book, a very complete background book, both from the gaming and the historical point of view. In his design notes, Folco says that the sources in English about this period are few, they are hard to find, they're sometimes inconsistent. I can say the sources not in English. This is one of the places where I work the most in support of the great work by Enrico, of course. Sources not in English are many. They are quite easy to find, at least here in Italy, but they're still always inconsistent. We found a lot of inconsistencies. Some of them were written by Florentine writers, others by Sienese writers, either by so-called neutral writers. They were not neutral at all. It was a bit of a Rashomon situation, if you remember the old Kurosawa movie. Everyone was lying, even the ghosts, and we'll see that in a moment. Oh, and so many names, so many people coming around. So it was fascinating, but it was not hard, but it was complex. It was elaborated, and it has not been easy even for us here in Italy. So it is a testament to the great system deployed by Folco with this Discord server living campaign, and that it was able to, and they were able with Enrico to produce such a good game about such a complex topic from an historical aspect. Also, great iconography, great images for shields, heraldry, and also the artistic department. It's been really a fantastic work, and it is pleasing to a player's eyes. It is incredible to historical enthusiast eyes. Oh, by the way, just one thing, I don't know, Folco, are you sure or not having Italian ancestors? Because Folco is a very, very, very Tuscan name. Folco. We have a lot of Folco out there in Tuscany. Anyway, and the other part is from Folco to Dante, because with this game we can understand Dante. I reserved for him the last part of this game, of this presentation. Dante writes a generation after those events in the comedy, but Dante was a poet, but he was also a soldier. He fought in Campaldino. The situation was totally different, but he lived in those days. He still felt the consequences. It was just as if someone who was more or less is living the events of September 11, or let's see, at the very most, the first Gulf War. So it was very much alive still in his age. There are many great games. I remember the Age of Dante series by Roberto Chiavini and the Guelphs and Ghibellines by Pier Gennaro Federico. There are great games about Dante's direct and personal involvement, but not just on the military aspect. Dante was involved in politics. He was a diplomat. He was exiled for political struggle after what essentially was a coup in Florence, and so all those aspects are present. And that is why I copied that passage from the Divine Comedy in the text section. You will See, it is the 10th canto of Inferno. It is absolutely, and it is dedicated to those episodes. And Dante meets Farinata de Uberti, and here I'm not going to give you all the composition, all the text, but the Farinata says it is important. Farinata asks Dante, we are in Inferno, Farinata is dead, but even the ghosts, as I said, they have their own version, and Farinata recognizes the language of Dante. It says, you are Tuscan, you are Tosco, you are a Tuscan. It says about the descendants of the city, the next generation of Florentines. Farinata was an exile, was a Ghibelline exile from Florence, and he spurred Siena in war against Florence, a war that was won at Montaperti because he wanted to get back to the city, and says, e se tu mai nel dolce mondo regge, dimmi perché quel popolo esiempio incontra miei in ciascuna sua legge. Why that people from Florence still approves laws that forbid my descendants to get back to the city? Okay, we have won, and then we were repelled after, but Florence still, after so many years, still hates us. And Dante says, on Dio lui, lo strazio, il grande scempio che fece l'Arbia colorata in rosso. Tale orazione fa far nel nostro tempio. What happened on the Arbia, that is Montaperti, because it was near the river Arbia, the devastation that made the Arbia red with the Florentine blood pushes us to such prayers of damnation against your blood, against your family, Farinata. And Farinata, after that, on that same passage of the comedy, says, yes, it is true. I had my reasons to fight for the Ghibellites, for Siena, against my own country, my own city, Firenze. But when we won, and there were people in Siena that wanted to destroy, totally ravage Florence, raze it to the ground, I was the only one, mine was the only voice that stood against that. Why? Because I may be a political enemy of a specific faction of Florence, but I'm not a traitor. Florence still is my country. Florence still is my city, and I just wanted to come back to my city. This is the tragedy of this conflict, of this infighting, of this urban infighting between different parts of the city. I was exiled from my city. I went to the enemy, to the bitter enemy of my city. I spurred them to action. We fought a great battle. We won that battle. We got back in the city. But when the enemy said, okay, now let's destroy Florence, I remember, no, I'm a Florentine. My city stands. Even if that means that one generation after, my descendants are defeated and dirted, and they cannot get back. But I'm happy. Why? Because my city stands. Because my city is still there. I'm not the traitor to my country, to my city, to what I perceive as my city. Okay. And in conclusion, I covered lots of topics, but it is a very great game. It is a very nice game, but so much more remains to see in your own journeys through Inferno. This game truly is a journey. Here are my contacts of the blog, my YouTube channel, Ludostoria, our Facebook group dedicated to history and games, for every single form of games, and these are my personal contacts. And thank you for having been here. And if there are some questions about this, here I am. Okay, let's see the text. Oh, Folco has shared lots of great pictures in the text channel. Thanks, Enrico. Thanks, Enrico. And especially, I advise you to look at the map of the Montaperti battle made by Enrico, and it is present in the background group. Lots of sources, great sources, also of Guelphs and Ghibellines and other aspects. I think, Enrico, you worked as an illustrator for Guelphs and Ghibellines too. Yes. Oh, James WQ. Winter Quartering. Giacomo Scolaro is on YouTube channel. He has great playthroughs, and Volko has given us also pictures of Mark Greenwald and his great Lauria game about the situation in southern Italy. Guys, if there is any question, I'm here, and okay. Yeah.
Hi, Riccardo.
Giacomo.
It was a pleasure to listen to you. Thanks for this great presentation of the game.
Thank you very much, Giacomo. Giacomo is a close friend, and it's nice because your Veneto accent still is there even when you speak.
I know.
It's fantastic. Great. Look at this video. Winter Quartering, great channel.
Masterful presentation, Riccardo. Thank you so much. Just very dear to me to have been able to witness this today.
Thank you, Folco. Enrico, do you have any words for us? Okay. Now I think okay, maybe is as a anyway. I want to thank Folco, the great guy. Enrico.
Many things. A wonderful presentation, very historically correct.
Thank you.
I had the fact that the father of Beatrice was the Dante's love, platonic love of his name Folco Portinari. So Folco Runchi and Folco Portinari.
Folco.
This closed the story.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. And this game, as I said, it is important. It's an important game for the Italian wargaming community, for sure, for every single wargaming, but this is also an important title for giving a great image of how dynamic the medieval landscape, the Italian medieval landscape was. Also, thanks to the great San Diego History Con for this opportunity, also for the permission to rebroadcast this video that will be rebroadcast in vlog if I get everything right with OBS. Also, I want to remember also for the relationship between games and history, the great tour that in August the San Diego History Con is organizing in Rhode Island, a great 3 days with lots of game designers and visits to many battlefields of the American Revolution and the USS Massachusetts. I will give every single detail in the description of this on this video. Also, it is a very nice thing that a virtual convention has been made with a special attention to us European players with a special segment with time zones, with the European time zones. So thank you, everybody.
Riccardo, if I could just quickly add, because there is more Levian campaign to come for those who are still up for SD HistCon today. We had to cancel, unfortunately, our teach and play of Inferno with Fred Serval because he's not feeling well, but he will catch up and do that somewhere. with me and with Joe Dewhurst. But in 1 hour, I'll be joining designer Peter Mojic. He will be in Prague and showing us his game Žižka on the crusade against the Hussite revolt in 1420. And then I think starting 3 hours after that, Mark Greenwald will have one of his games from Chevauché, 100 Years War Levian Campaign. So join for any of those if you can.
Yeah, great titles. I've seen the schedule of the convention. You will see Levian campaign titles popping up everywhere. They're fantastic. They're great titles. We have focused on Inferno for this particular moment, for this particular panel. But I have to say that the same panel could be made for Almoravid or for Nevsky, and it will be the subject of future research. I anticipate that. It is a great system, and it is very versatile, very flexible, and every single title manages to capture those essential elements, just as Inferno did with the Italian Tuscany political and military landscapes. So, thanks everyone for being here. Great experience, and enjoy the rest of this great convention. Bye bye.
Ciao.